And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
Alright, 68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to yet another event in what we are going to call Star Week. Now that we've had a Starliner launch attempt, Starship static fire, and now several Starlink launches. I'm Trevor Sesnick. I'll be the host for today's mission. I see all those 5x5s in chat. Thank you very much for that. As you can see at the top left of your screen, in just about an hour, SpaceX will be launching their Starlink Group 6-56 mission with launch currently scheduled for 1842 UTC. Thankfully, I am not alone on today's stream. You haven't heard his voice in a very long time, a whole 5 minutes, but Alex, thank you for that rapid turnaround from Starship stream to this stream and for being here today.
Yeah, it's a Star Week, as you mentioned, right? We had, sadly it delayed, but we had the Starliner earlier in the week. We also had a couple of Starlink launches as well, and now another Starlink launch. And we had Ship 30 at Starbase also doing a static fire test earlier today. So definitely lots of stars this week.
Yeah, and this isn't even the only Starlink launch of the day. In a few hours, SpaceX has the 8-2 mission launching from California, which will have some more direct-to-cell satellites, which will be exciting. But also exciting, we have Mr. Max Evans on today's stream. Max, how's it going?
I'm feeling pretty starstruck right now. No, nothing? Okay,
Literally,
wow. Literally
looking
crickets,
at the-
literally silence. Okay, that landed.
But also, you said that while I was looking at the back channel with that picture that you sent. That's literally Star Trek, I guess. Struck. Or, oh boy, I cannot even English now. But you're wearing some
no
kind of
words,
protection.
There are no rails for today's Starlink stream, everybody. But good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you may be watching from. And welcome to a rather warm and sunny day here at the Kennedy Space Center.
So, Max, can you explain to us what exactly Ryan just showed with why you have two hats on and a headset?
Wait.
We showed the picture. There
Oh my God, you did. Why is that on stream? No! Oh no. So essentially, for streams, I cannot wear my big old nice straw hat that I use to protect my neck, my head, and my shoulders from the sun in these summer-like conditions because my headset will not fit underneath it or over it, obviously. So I wear my normal NSF white baseball cap backwards like I normally do, then put my headset on, and then now I have this strapped rather tightly to my chin because the sun, when it does come out, is rather brutal today. So, but you do what you gotta do to stay protected.
We need to get you a different device for talking rather than a headset, I guess.
Like, what are you proposing?
I don't know. I don't know about microphones.
Just not AirPods.
Just not
just
AirPods. Cough, cough,
please.
wink, wink, nudge,
Exactly.
nudge, Jack.
Yeah.
I think yelling at the camera is actually better than talking on AirPods.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just have you guys on speaker on my laptop, and then I'll just be shouting into the camera microphone. How about that?
Sounds fantastic. And then operating today's stream, we have Ryan Caton, and then also in the field next to Max is D. So thank you for those people helping out, even though they may not be heard on stream today. That also hopefully means we get some more of D's amazing slow motion shots after launch today. But with that, Alex, could you take us through what we're expecting to see on today's mission?
Yeah, so we have another stack of Starlink V2 mini satellites. This one is carrying 23 satellites. Interestingly, so the direction of today's launch is also going to be to the southeast. It's going to be 43-degree inclination orbit, but it's going to go a little bit higher than usual. The orbit is about 20 kilometers higher than usual. I believe per the tracker data, it's about 316 by 323 kilometer. It usually is about 285 by 293. So it's about 20, 30 kilometers higher than usual for this mission, which is interesting because it's carrying the same number of satellites, right? So something must be interesting with the satellites today. I don't really know. It might be that they have improved the performance of the rocket, but other than that, it's your very regular Starlink launch. One thing that is sort of newer, or rather more interesting than just launching the satellites, is also the booster is a newer one, so you see less suit on that. But other than that, it's also on a drone ship. It's going to be a Shortfall Of Gravitas, the usual thing.
Yeah, and this is actually something that we were talking about just last night. How consistent SpaceX's booster turnaround times have been recently. Right, today's mission is 28.54 day turnaround, and a lot of the missions recently have been right around that 28 to 30 day mark. In fact, the mission that's launching from Vandenberg tonight is also going to be a 28-day turnaround. That's also a new booster, V1082. And then, let's see, previous launches have been, 31, 33, 29, 34, 28, 28 days. So it's impressive how quick the average turnaround time is nowadays, despite us not seeing a new quickest turnaround yet. Let's see. Going into some of your guys' questions.
Yeah, that's the trajectory, by the way.
Yes, there's the trajectory Alex was alluding to earlier. And there is stage 2 splashdown location in the Indian Ocean, a bit south of South Africa. Anyway, to some of your guys' questions, Alex, Mike is wondering, is the flight profile of the first stage ascent different for RTLS versus drone ship landings? More vertical, less downrange, for example.
Yeah, for drone ships, it tends to be a little bit flatter. The trajectory doesn't really reach that high up. It still goes into space. It goes well beyond 100 kilometers, but it doesn't really reach that much. For Starlink, it tends to be around 115, more or less. RTLS, it kind of depends. Depending on the mission, they may do a more lofted trajectory, because it also depends on where stage 2 is going. Sometimes certain RTLS missions, the stage 2 is going directly into its target orbit, especially if it's a low Earth orbit mission, for example, then it might go straight to that orbit because it probably has enough performance. One example that I can think of is the Worldview launch from a couple of weeks ago, or rather a few days ago, from Vandenberg. It went all the way to the 500 and something kilometer orbit without needing 2 burns, because it was a very low mass payload. And so what that meant is that the RTLS for the booster was also very lofted. I think it reached somewhere around 150 kilometers in altitude on its apogee, on its highest point, essentially. So it obviously goes higher. The more that the second stage wants to go higher, the more higher the first stage will also go on its trajectory. I think the highest that we've seen, or that we know of, is about 250 kilometers on the Formosat 5 mission. That was in 2017. Around 250.
correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that one of the missions where they were originally going to fly it on like Falcon 1 or Falcon 1E, and then it got
Yeah.
moved to Falcon 9, and that's why it was just so overkill. So they basically just had the first stage go straight up.
Yeah, and that one went up even higher than 500. It went to something like 700 kilometers or something like that. It went very high up when it was launched, and so it went straight up. Ironically, that was not an RTLS. So I'm saying it kind of depends on the mission. That was not an RTLS. It was drone ship landing, precisely because of how lofty it was. It didn't make sense to go back. Also, they didn't have the permits to be able to go back to land. It will take about a year more to be able to go to the launch site at Vandenberg. But even then, they could have put maybe the drone ship offshore and then land there, right? They still put the drone ship just downrange. They didn't have a boost back burn on that mission. It just went all the way up, and you could see on the reentry when it did the reentry burn on that mission, the entry burn was done very high up as well because it was picking up a lot of vertical speed. And so when we see those entry burns, they normally happen around 60 kilometers in altitude. That probably happened a lot higher, like maybe 100 kilometers or something, because a lot of the velocity that it needed to bleed off was vertical. So if it goes too much fast in the vertical direction, you encounter the thicker air, you encounter it faster, so the aerodynamic forces just become too much for the booster. So probably that was why. I still remember that it was bonkers, even though it was like early times of Falcon 9.
I mean, really, at this point, any non-Block 5 launch feels like a long time ago and early.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was...
Hey, that was almost 7 years
August-
ago.
Yeah, August 27th, 2017.
Yeah. And so that was very early into the career of Falcon 9. I'm trying to look here which number it was. It was the 40th launch of Falcon 9. So yeah, we're already at well over 300.
Yeah, 15th landing. Wow, only the 5th SpaceX launch from Slick 4 East. It is crazy how little they used to use that pad. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting to look back. That isn't even that long ago in the grand scheme of things, and just seeing how far SpaceX has come.
It was 70 launches ago from Vandenberg, because later today, that older Starlink, it's the 75th from Vandenberg.
Wow. Wow, yeah. Anyway, back to a little bit of support from Coco Cats, a regular here on stream, gifting a Red Team membership. So thank you for your support, Coco Cats. And then Black Shadow is asking, doesn't all the soot building up on the surface increase the booster's dry mass? Alex, is that something that SpaceX even has to take into account, or is it so negligible that you think it can be ignored?
Well, once they start launching a lot, obviously there's some consideration probably to that, but I don't think it's really that much. It doesn't seem to me that it's too much, and especially if you think about it, the booster stages, right? And so how it affects the final payload. It's not only that it's not a lot of soot in terms of mass, but also in terms of the ratio of, like, if it were on the second stage, every single kilogram or pound or whatever unit of mass you want to use, every single piece of mass that you put on there, it's also being carried to orbit, right? So that removes it from the total payload performance of the rocket. Now, on the booster, though, it only reaches about a quarter, maybe less than a quarter of the orbital velocity, and the rest is done by the second stage. So putting a little bit of mass on the first stage is not gonna affect greatly, like totally having to reconsider everything. It does affect, but it's a very minimal effect. That's the whole point here.
Yeah, and I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the booster wet mass is so much that its effect is so small. But it would be interesting to see what exactly the added mass is from that. I bet it's only on the order of, a few dozen kilograms. What? Black Shadow with another question, wondering what's up with all that water spraying at the moment around the pad. I don't think that's water. Alex, what is some of the venting and haze that we're seeing on screen right now?
That's the heat. We should probably maybe ask Max how hot is there. But yeah. You can see also a helicopter in the background.
Yeah. Max, how warm is it where you are?
Yeah, what you guys are seeing right now is a bit of atmospheric distortion because of the temperature of the air right now. And currently, where we are at the KSC, it is registering about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, of course, it's warm. That would actually classify. So for me, being in Florida now, I classify anything from like 81 to 89 as warm, and anything at 90 and above is hot. So it's like it's pretty hot out today. But there, as you can probably see from the camera shaking out just a little bit, it is a bit breezy here as well. But that helps take some of the temperature off your skin, and also there is the very, 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 very occasional cloud coming over and blocking the sun out for us. So we're getting some marginal relief here today. But yeah, it is about 90 degrees Fahrenheit right now at the Kennedy Space Center.
Yeah, I can understand you because it's 89 here, so we're essentially very close in temperature.
But at least you're inside, though.
It's actually worse inside because right now the sun is shining across my room. It's essentially shining on my window, so it's really hot in here in my room, especially with the PC and everything.
Oh, jeez.
I really wish I could open my window, but again, sun is shining through, so like yeah, I don't want to get sunburn or anything like it, like you, I guess.
Yeah. Where is it more humid though? Almost certainly Florida.
Oh yeah. In my app here, it says 58% in Florida, and it's 30% here. So yeah, a lot more humid.
For us, anything below about 80% is considered dry.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, it's dry day.
I'm on the other end of the extreme where I'm like, it's 20% humid out. Dang, that's humid. All right. Yeah, okay. I see Steve and a few other people in chat are asking us to go over the previous missions for this booster. So as Alex mentioned earlier, this is B1083, only on its third flight. So it's previously supported Crew 8 and Starlink Group 6-48. So it first flew just in March of this year, and it's already on its third flight. Which just goes to show that these turnaround times are impressive on these newer boosters.
Yeah, only 28-day turnaround time, 28 days and 13 hours. Only 2 flights prior to this. It's really interesting, right? Because it's what we mentioned yesterday or the other day. I don't remember when was the last Starlink launch, but across the board, all of these turnaround times, there hasn't been anyone that has been record-breaking, right? But the average has gone down, which is interesting because again, we kind of mentioned this every few streams that in 2022 the average was around 50 to 60 days on the turnaround times for the boosters. Then it went down to around 40 to 50 in 2023, and now it's like around 30 days. It's like 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Very rare to see a booster doing 40 or even more than 40 days turnaround. So yeah, it's very interesting.
So, as you alluded to, we haven't seen a new record in a while, right? The quickest booster turnaround to date is still B1062 at 21 days, 6 hours and 10 minutes between Axiom 1 and oh boy, what was it was Axiom Mission 1 and Starlink Group 6-16 or 416,
if I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious. Let's start with you, Max. Do you expect that record to be broken in the next few months, now that SpaceX's launch cadence is so much higher, they have a better understanding of what needs refurbishment, what just needs inspecting, all that.
Well, it's going to have to be broken at some point if they want to hit 200 launches next year, and also if they want to somehow include a third drone ship in the works. Decreasing booster turnaround time will only do them good. And of course, Falcon 9, as we know, is a very, very reliable launch vehicle, and so the amount of time the boosters spend over in Hangar X is slowly coming down. And as Alex said, it's nearly halved, or it has halved on average since 2022. And of course, which is remarkable on its own. And with this booster being so young and having a lack of flight time compared to most of the fleet now, I mean, it's rare to find a booster now that is below 7 or 8 flights, which is amazing. Yeah, I would expect that to fall probably. I can see them having around a 20 to 24 day turnaround by the end of the year, perhaps, especially if they do want to get close or hit that 148 goal for this year.
Yeah, because one of the things of reducing the average time for turnaround times is that you essentially keep the same booster fleet size. You don't need to introduce a lot more boosters. Obviously, now that they have expanded B1060, right? They'll probably have to join with another booster, or maybe have the turnaround times be slightly faster to compensate for that loss, so to speak. It was not an unplanned loss, that was a planned loss. So they probably had already plans to replace it and introduce a new booster. So who knows, maybe one of these boosters was already there, because this booster was debuted on Crew 8, that was this year. And so this could be that replacement in that sense, if you think about it. And so right now, that's the thing. If you keep the booster size, the booster fleet size the same, things like the hangars and all of that, it can stay everything the same. You just need to accelerate a little bit more the turnaround times. But they have already demonstrated 21 days on one booster, so they could essentially do it across multiple boosters and get it down to 25, 24, 23. And when you least expect it, it's like, oh my gosh, now the average is 20 days between flights for these boosters, which will already be a record by today's standards. But I agree with you, Max, that they'll probably keep the booster fleet size more or less the same, maybe adding 1 or 2 at most, if anything, and just keep driving down that average time between launches. They'll probably increase more the size on the West Coast, though, because they have only 5 boosters, so they'll probably need more there.
I mean, Falcon 9 boosters are pretty expensive to manufacture, so if they can avoid that cost by any means they can, that will only do them good. So I can see them maybe growing by 1 or 2 for next year, but it is so rare to see a brand new Falcon 9 booster around here nowadays. I know whenever we go out onto the pad, whether it be 39A or like 40 for camera setup, if there's a brand new booster out there, we take all the photos we can, because it's so easy to forget that underneath all of that dark soot, Falcon 9 is a bright white color. And so seeing it in that shade naturally without any soot on it is incredibly rare. And honestly, it's pretty special.
It really goes to show how successful SpaceX has been in their reuse goals, that it is now weird to see a brand new booster, and it's weird to see a booster expended. And while we're talking about it, SpaceX is now returning just read the instructions from Starlink Group 6-57.
Yeah, with B1069 after its 15th flight.
Yeah, so that's 15 flights right there on that one booster on that drone ship. And as soon as that drone ship is back in port, it'll be a few hours before that booster is taken off and that drone ship gets ready for its next mission, which, Alex, do we know what the next Starlink launch from the Cape is?
Yeah, we expect that to be on the 12th Eastern time. That'll be 13 UTC, though. Because it's around, it should be 8:11 p.m. Eastern, and in UTC that will be midnight 11, essentially 11 minutes past midnight UTC, on the 13th. So about 4.5 days from now.
Wow. Yeah, it really is just crazy how, I don't even know what the word is, routine these Starlink launches are from the Cape. And let's also not forget that, as you can see on screen right now, I believe that's the passive half that we're looking at. That is quite obviously flight proven. Unfortunately, we don't know how many times it's flown, but we know they've flown fairings up to 16 times now. So it's, reuse is real, and it's exciting. Anyway, Alex, now that we are about to hit T-minus 35 minutes, could you go over the fueling procedure that will be starting soon?
Yeah, we're expecting essentially, well, I don't know why that's checked out, because we still don't know whether they have actually verified go for propeller load. But essentially, that's what we're waiting for to get any confirmation. Thanks for crossing that off. Because it's true that right now we don't really know if they are go for propeller load. One of the things that I should say, though, if they don't go for propeller load right now, this is the last time of the day to attempt the launch, because this is like the last T0, the last launch opportunity for the day. They have already gone through the whole window for today. So this will be the last opportunity. So if they load, and if not, we see tomorrow, right? It's that sort of thing. So pending official confirmation from SpaceX, at T-minus 35 minutes, that should start the auto sequence. And the auto sequence essentially initiates that propeller load, where the stage 1 will get fully loaded with RP1 and liquid oxygen. And the second stage, for the moment, will get RP1. The liquid oxygen load will not begin until the T-minus 60-minute mark on the count. But for now, that is that. So again, we sometimes get some confirmation from SpaceX through social media, aka X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. But other times we just see the frost on the vehicle. It usually happens at around T-minus 32 minutes or so when we start seeing that condensation and frost on the liquid oxygen tank of the booster. That's where the SpaceX logo is on this booster. See, this is a newer booster, so I can say that. If it were sooty and like super old, you will not be able to see the SpaceX logo. But there's the sort of enhanced kind of thing. So in about 3 or 4 minutes, oh well, there you go. SpaceX won. They have already confirmed propeller load has started. So yeah, it's usually a bit of a fight, right? Is it gonna be first the frost? It's gonna be SpaceX. But this time around, SpaceX won. Now we have confirmation indeed. Propeller load is underway on Falcon 9. Now we can tick off, there you go, all of those things on the timeline.
Awesome, yeah. So yeah, 34 minutes away from launch. And I think this is a good time to talk about something that I saw on X the other day, and I imagine you have some good insight to add, Alex. Right, we saw that SpaceX had this flight from Hawthorne to the Cape, which I believe we were told it was 2 nozzle extensions for MVACs. Is this a common thing that SpaceX does? How do they normally transport them? Is this just for an increase in launch cadence? All of the questions that we have.
Yeah, it was hilarious a little bit to see them, trying to rush to get the MVAC nozzle extensions out there. This is also one of the things that a lot of people, it's probably one of the more general misconceptions about Falcon 9. There's a lot of things that get installed on the rocket at the launch site that does not get installed at Hawthorne. For example, for new boosters, that is the legs and the grid fins. Those get installed at the launch site. So when we see them at McGregor, you don't see the legs, you don't see the grid fins, and people think, oh, it's going to be expendable or something. No, that gets installed at the launch site. Well, another thing like that is the MVAC extension. So we usually talk about the Stubby nozzle and whatnot. That is essentially the MVAC nozzle extension. Instead of being the full size, it's just a little bit like about a third the size, or rather the length of the nozzle extension. So those nozzle extensions, they don't get installed on the MVAC engine until the MVAC engine is installed on the second stage, and also when it is at the launch site. So when it is in McGregor, they don't get that nozzle extension. They don't get that at Hawthorne either. It is only installed at the launch site in a hangar, or before integrating it with a booster. So essentially, that's what we saw were this documentation about them trying to get 2 of these MVAC nozzle extensions from Hawthorne all the way to the launch site. And they said on that documentation that via trucks and basically, via ground transportation, they take about 10 days to transport that from Hawthorne all the way to the Cape, and that they really needed those 2 nozzle extensions because they were going to be on Starlink missions that were going to be going off this week. So they said on the paperwork 657 and 658, but then again, those 2 missions, or at least 657 has already happened, but it was on the date for this mission. They switched the missions essentially. But yeah, that is pretty much what happened there, and I think it's the first time that I've seen them being in a hurry to ship those, but it's not the first time that Falcon 9 hardware is being shipped over air on an Antonov. That's happened before with the fairing halves, for example. But now that the fairings are reused, that's not a problem, because they have plenty of fairings to reuse. And so, yeah, that is not really a problem. I guess if the second stage were to be reused, that will also not be a problem. They will not need any of that. But so far, the second stage of Falcon 9 is expendable. Starship will solve that.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is all the MVAC engines are stubby at some point. They're all stubby.
No, they are not stubby. They're just not with a nozzle extension. Like,
Exactly.
it doesn't
they're
really
stubby.
even have
They're
it.
stubby. They're stubby until
But
they're not.
They're
Well-
stubbier than stubby.
TLDR.
Yeah,
they're
stubbier
stubby.
than
Exactly. They're
stubby.
even better.
Oh, Max, we have more of a comment for you from Gareth, saying, not Starlink related, but I just finished my Stubby Nozzle is the best nozzle t-shirt, and they're going to wear it to the UK meetup. Will they still get in?
Oh my God, you are my hero. Please do. Make like 5 more or many more and hand them out to everyone who walks in. That would be incredible.
No, I think I'm not going to be there, but I think, can we get Ryan, Chris, make sure that no Stubby Nozzle fans are accepted in? Yeah, Ryan in the back channel, they will be banned in all caps.
Actually, yesterday during the aborted static fire stream, someone in the comments mentioned the idea of doing a stubby nozzle patch, which I am 100% in for. Let's do it.
No. Stubby Nozzle has been talked about too much on today's stream, so we're going to go and talk, or thank some of our supporters. Nigel with the gifted Red Team membership, and then IndyCar saying they're commenting on the white tank's storage and the heat mirage. It looks like gas cloud, mostly looking at the background tank. I am not sure what this is alluding to.
Commenting on the white tanks, O2 storage, and the heat mirage.
Probably the white circular tank in the background behind the transporter erector on the more northeastern. Oh, helicopter. Hello, Coast Guard helicopter. Nice to see you.
Yeah, that is not an O2 tank. That is for methane. That's liquid methane. It used to be for liquid hydrogen for Saturn V and the shuttle. It was not used during, Falcon activities and things like that, but recently was renovated as a liquid methane sphere for Starship. So that's going to be used once they start launching from 39A, which you can find out what's the progress of that on our latest Cape flyover, which just went live about 3 hours ago, I think it was. So yeah, that's going to be where you can see some of that progress on Starship at the Cape.
Very cool. Then Tucker is asking, can you give a quick overview of the process that happens between landing on the drone ship and being back on pad for flight again? Yes, that's the video Alex was alluding to. Make sure you go watch it. Mods, could we spam that link in chat, please? Yeah, and then Alex, the Tucker's question of the overview of what happens between landing on drone ship and getting back to pad again for flight. What does that process look like?
Yeah, I think we also have an even older video, but that's like from a long time ago on that. There's an even more recent video as well. We have a few different videos on the Falcon 9 recovery because it's being sort of evolving. There was a more recent one from Ryan, who's operating today's stream. That one, I think it was like a couple of months ago. I think it was maybe February or March, if I remember correctly. So yeah, but essentially what they do is once the booster has landed, it vents its tanks and things like that. The liquid oxygen boils off, it becomes gas and all of that, so the oxygen eventually disappears, but the RP1 stays a little bit. There's always some leftover kerosene. So one of the things that they do, apart from rolling out, there's a garage, so to speak, where the octograbber lives in. That door opens, the octograbber rolls out, it hooks up to the hold down points on the octaweb. That's why it's called the octograbber. Not octograbber, it's octa, because it's octaweb. that's another thing. So it's the octograbber, and it holds to the octaweb, to those 4 hold downs where the rocket is right now sitting on or being held on, and they, it just uses the same interfaces to hold onto the booster while it's on the deck of the drone ship. Then a lot of operators just secure the booster, things like that. They usually have disconnections to the quick disconnects on the booster. The booster has 2 quick disconnects, and one of them is for the RP1. So what they do is usually they drain back that RP1 to fully safe it, and I don't know what they do with it. Maybe they recycle it or something. They probably also save the T-tab on board of the booster, that pyrophoric fluid that they use to relight the engines during flight. And so all of that is done while they're going to back to port, and that's essentially what you could see on that shot before. That's the booster coming back. They remove all of those connections. They remove octograbber. While they do all of that, they also connect a cap on top of the booster to be able to lift it. And then they fold the legs, they put it horizontal, and off it goes to the hangar to get refurbished. It probably gets inspections, to be fair. Like, one of the things that I'm mostly sure they do is, as soon as it lands, to speed up the whole refurbishment part of things, I bet it gets inspected or things like that, even if it's visually just looking at things, how it is doing, some early data or something like that. That could also be the case. I'm mostly sure they do something like that to be able to speed up.
Yeah, it would make sense. Then, I must say, I think it is a historic day. We have a super chat that is a reference to a TV show, and I get the reference. I'd rather be flying in X-Wing says, I think the Stubby t-shirts should get the same treatment Ron Swanson gave vegan bacon. I fully agree with that. Amazing reference. I actually got it. Thank you. I'd rather be flying in X-Wing.
I don't get the reference, to be honest. I know who that
I don't get
character
it
is,
either.
but I'm not. Yeah, that's.
Okay, so there's in Parks and Rec, there's this Ron Swanson dude who's like a huge meat person and doesn't eat vegetables, that kind of guy. And there's a scene of him going to this like vegan grocery store, and they have vegan bacon for sample. And he's like, can I get a piece? And he's like, he gets the piece and just immediately throws it into the trash, and then asks for another and immediately throws it into the trash, and then was like, I hope no one has to ever eat this, or something like that. There's the reference. So he wants the Stubby t-shirts to be thrown into the trash.
At least Stubby nozzles are more useful than vegan bacon.
True. Then, ooh, here's a good one for you, Max. Stigton23 is wondering, whatever happened to the mobile service tower they were going to build for classified payloads?
I believe, I don't know exactly. I think it's been kind of on the back burner for a while, especially with SpaceX bidding on some other paths potentially, and with Slick 6 being bid and won over at Vandenberg. I don't know. There's been a lack of news on that for quite some time now, at least from what I can remember and pull up. That was the plan for a while because I know the extended fairings for Falcon Heavy are still in development. That's still a thing, but I'm not quite sure exactly where or how SpaceX and the NRO, Space Force, whoever is going to use that, is planning on vertically integrating those payloads right now. Maybe at a different launch pad here at the Cape. Maybe they are still building one. Alex, do you have any insight on that?
My bet is that they're going to be doing just what they did with the Methalox loading through the fairing and everything with the Nova C lander, where it just gets done once it's needed, once it's closer to that need. Because for that, for example, they did most of the work. They did some early work, but most of the work was done essentially the months prior to that mission. So that is something that I would expect the same for any mobile service tower or whatever. That whenever they get close to needing it, then they'll probably be building that up. Otherwise, just there and rusting and things like that. It doesn't make sense to build it years in advance or anything like it. It just doesn't make sense.
Right. But what does make sense is the time. It is T-minus 20 minutes and 35 seconds. Alex, some event is about to happen. Can you tell us about this event?
Yeah, it just happened right now. That's the T-minus 20-minute event. Ironically, it happens a few seconds earlier at 39A. I don't know why. It happened right when I expected, at least for 39A, but compared to the other two pads, it occurs a little bit different in the timeline. I'm guessing it's because it's different tank farm or different strom bag and things like that. But yeah, that's the chill down of the liquid oxygen line to the second stage. That chill down obviously means that you're not only cooling down the line, but also you're heating up the liquid oxygen that you flow through that line. So that means you're creating gaseous oxygen that you need to vent out. And that's what we're seeing there. That's gaseous oxygen being vented out. And one of the things that should happen is that once we see that vent stop, it's not because they're stopping the chill down. I guess in some sense it's also they're stopping the chill down, but it means that they're stopping to, like they close the valve, and now that liquid oxygen is going somewhere else. It's going to the tank. That means liquid oxygen load is underway. So once that vent stops, that'll be our clue that liquid oxygen is underway, that load is underway on the second stage.
Right. Cool. Oh gosh, we have a merch idea. A full print Merlin t-shirt and a Stubby Merlin crop top.
That's like way more clever and brilliant than it has any right to be.
Can we get photos of Jack in a Stubby Merlin
Oh
crop
my
top?
God. Yes, please. Someone in chat, Photoshop that, please. Please. Wait. That in a kilt. The crop top in a kilt. Please. Somebody please make that happen.
If anyone makes that Photoshop, ping us in the Discord, please. Gosh, this idea is very good. Adrian, I hope you're listening. Hey is asking, will they do something with Falcon 9 in the future, like Block 6? I know that they said they weren't going to do any other blocks. When do you think they will retire it? So we've kind of been seeing gradual upgrades of Falcon 9, even though there hasn't been an official new Block 6. So, Alex, we expect this to continue in the future, that as they learn more and more, they'll keep making small changes to Falcon. But at what point do you think they'll just be done with Falcon and move entirely to the Starship program?
Yeah, that is one of the things, right? That they cannot really do major changes or major block changes. They do small little changes here and there. They improve things here and there, and that's all they can do right now. Especially because Falcon 9 is currently, like, even the size, it's limited. It's essentially the widest that you can make it and still transport that through, trucks on the road and all of that. But also at the same time, the length that's essentially how long you can make it before you have issues with bending forces and all of that during ascent. So you cannot really make it larger, and the only other way to improve it is just to make maybe the engines more powerful, more efficient, and that's what they've been doing with little changes here and there, especially for Starlink launches. That's one of the things that they can do. Another thing that they do sometimes is speed up a little bit more the liquid oxygen load onto the vehicle, which, by the way, it's now ongoing on the second stage, because we've seen that T-minus 20-minute vent stop. So that means now liquid oxygen is flowing into the second stage. And the thing is, they try to squeeze as much propellant as they can and try to load as much propellant as they can to be able to get more performance out of the rocket. Because at the end of the day, the delta V equation is about mass and it's not about thrust. The thrust gains that you do on the rocket, it just means that you're battling less of the gravity, I guess. Like you're pushing more your rocket, and that performance that you're taking out from the delta V equation, instead of going to battling all of the gravity losses, it just goes into pushing your payload. And so that's what you do with thrust increases. When loading more propellant, though, what you're getting is more budget for your performance. Essentially, you're getting more delta V out of your rocket just by putting more propellant on board. And so that's one of the few things that they've been doing, both increasing the thrust a little bit and trying to get more propellant into the tanks by loading it a little bit later into the count. We've seen sometimes these callouts for liquid oxygen load complete, essentially going almost to the point of the startup moment, right? Like 30 seconds or so before startup, which occurs at T-minus 1 minute. But other than that, you cannot really make Falcon 9 larger or anything like it. That's going to be Starship. Starship 9 meters wide. You can make it as tall as you want. I think for Starship to be with the same sort of ratio of how thin it is and how long it is, right? You will need it to make it something like 170 meters tall, which is 50 meters longer than right now. And that's already a beast of a rocket.
Yeah, I think Elon has said, though, that they don't want Starship to be quite as fine as Falcon 9 is. So they would probably... right, we know of plans to increase ship height by a decent amount. What I think that was Starship V3. But outside of that, we haven't heard too much about realistic height increases. There's the occasional post on X from Elon where he says, want to expand this by this many rings or add engines, but no indications of any of that actually happening. Anyway, going on to some more of your guys' questions. Amber is saying, hey team, do you think there will be any nozzle variations for Starship like there is for Falcon 9? Max, this seems like a perfect question for you to start off with. Are you expecting differences in Raptor nozzles on stage 2 of Starship?
Can you say the question one more time, Trevor? Sorry, I was zoned out trying to make sure the camera was okay.
No, all good. Do you think there will be any nozzle variations for Starship like there is for Falcon 9?
Well, Ship already has a variation or a mix of Raptor vacuums and sea level Raptors for both entry, on orbit flight, and everything. So, I can't imagine there being anything too different from what it's at now, minus the addition of three more Raptor vacuum engines on the upper stage or ship. Maybe the nozzles will be refined to a certain shape to either improve efficiency and or decrease weight and increase performance. I mean, at this point, the world is SpaceX's oyster, and Starship is so early in development that they can pretty much almost change whatever they want, especially with Raptor V3 in development. There's so much room to grow and improve and add fine tuning and tweaks, honestly, on every single aspect of the vehicle. I would not be surprised to see either the sea level Raptors look different or the Rapvacs look any different. So maybe one day, to circle back to it, maybe one day, even though that there's currently a skirt, maybe one day that there will be a stubby Raptor vacuum engine.
Yeah, I'm just so thankful that the skirt on Raptor vacuum is needed for the engine, unlike on Merlin. Right, on Merlin, we see SpaceX is able to conduct static fires on the ground without the nozzle extension at all. And I imagine that's in some part what made the stubby nozzle a fairly easy change for Merlin, but that is not the case with Raptor. Right, we saw on today's Ship 30 static fire, those 3 vacuum engines need a ring stiffener to be able to be fired at sea level. So let's cross our fingers that SpaceX would not be able to make a stubby Raptor. Let's see. Alex, real quick.
Can we go to the?
Oh.
Can we go to the tweet? There you go. That's the other thing that. Yeah. So we have from Mr. Jared Isaacman. He's interested in this booster. So he did a very similar comment when we had the launch of B1062 on its second flight. That was a long time ago. And we sort of, that was sort of an indication that it was probably going to be used for Inspiration 4. And well, it was used for Inspiration 4. And therefore, we kind of think that maybe this booster is going to be used for Polaris Dawn on its next flight. That will be very, very interesting. That will be, yeah. We're essentially seeing that booster, I guess, if that's... It's not a confirmation, but it's a very strong hint, I guess.
That's the biggest wink, wink, nudge, nudge I think Jared could ever give us without telling us officially.
Yeah. He still loves B1062. I still see him sometimes posting on some of the... When 62 flies, he still has some nice words to say about it. It was the first booster to do 20 flights, and also the one that still holds the record for fastest turnaround time. So yeah, it's kind of a special.
Yeah. So I guess real quick, since we're talking about the Polaris mission, do we have a rough idea of when that launch is expected? Right, we know that the Dragon is at the Cape. SpaceX unveiled the EVA suits the other day, so it seems like they're getting very close, but do we have any solid indication, Alex?
Yeah, the documentation right now, at least from what I've seen, it kind of implies late May, early June. I believe they said on the EVA announcement that they're targeting early summer, so that's weird, but I guess they're using maybe the US summer kind of thing. Because for me, summer is like June 21st, June 22nd, right? But I know that at least in the in the US world kind of thing of talking about the summer, it's like, oh, June 1st is the summer or whatever. So maybe around the first week of June or something like that. Also, the paperwork seems to imply that they're launching from 40 rather than 39A. I'm surprised that no one asked on that interview with the folks during the EVA event, that no one asked about the launch side of things, like, oh, what booster and what are you going to be doing and what's going to be the orbit or whatever, right? Like, it's going to be one profile burn with the MVAC, it's going to be multiple burns, how is it going to be like, right? I'm surprised no one asked about that portion of the mission, which, to be fair, it's essential to get it off to orbit.
Yeah. But it is also essential that we let Max get us some amazing views of today's launch. So, Max, see you on the other side.
It is indeed that time, gentlemen. So I will see y'all on the other side. Good luck and Godspeed.
We can. We have
Oh
Max
my
cam.
God, you guys are not actually showing that. Sheesh.
I see his head is being very well protected from the solar rays. Yeah, so one other quick question from Keith about
look at
the
that.
Starliner scrub on Monday. Can you just give us a really quick update of what's going on with that, Alex?
Yeah, so we're essentially in the final few minutes here of the count, and we've already probably gone into the engine chill side of things. That's when it's very similar to the T-20 event. A little bit of liquid oxygen is flowed through the oxidizer turbo pump to condition it, to cool it down, to for engine ignition. Then we're gonna have a strong back retract. The RP1 load is also gonna be complete on the first stage. It's already complete on the second stage by now. And then just the final few minutes of the count are going to be wrapping up the propellant load on the first and second stages, clearing out the lines, doing the final closeouts before liftoff and everything. Then at T-1 minute, the ground computers will hand over control to the onboard computers on Falcon 9. The tanks will pressurize for flight. All of the FTS systems, the rocket will go in internal power, and all of that will essentially get ready for flight. And hopefully, we're gonna get our go for launch from the launch director. Those engines will ignite at 3 seconds, and maybe lift off in 3 seconds after that. But yeah, that's sort of the last few minutes here of the count.
Awesome. Yeah, the question that I had asked, which, I mean, that was all good info, but what about what's going on with Starliner? I've seen a few people in chat
Oh,
asking.
sorry.
You're all good. This is something I was going to ask you next anyway.
See, the thing is, I heard some star and what's coming up next, and so I'm like, okay, so he's asking me about Starlink today and not a Starliner. Yeah, it's okay. I still went through the whole thing that you were gonna be asking me anyways.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. Yeah,
No, I'm good.
Starliner, it's rolled back. It's on the vertical integration facility. They need to change that valve on the center upper stage because it was very close to the limit on the qualification side of things. So obviously they need to change that. It's going to take a while. It's going to be taking a little bit over a week, excuse me. Some number of days, I guess. They're about a week. And then the next attempt is going to be next Friday, not this week's Friday, but next week's Friday. That's going to be on the 17th. And we're going to have that attempt hopefully finally getting off the ground on Friday. Yeah, I'm sorry. I totally thought it was about Starlink. There's so many stars, right? We're in Star Week.
Yeah.
That, yeah, it gets confusing at one point. Sorry.
No, all good. There's a really cool shot of that payload fairing half. You can see the active half and the passive half have slightly different bumps on the side, which is how you can differentiate them, and both very obviously flight proven, which just is honestly the standard nowadays. It's quite rare that we see new fairings.
Yeah.
Let's see. Going over a few last minute questions ahead of launch. Dennis is asking, the boosters are tracked for launch and recovery. What about payload fairings? This is one of my biggest gripes with SpaceX. They used to tell us exactly what missions each payload fairing half had flown. And it was so nice because then you could have it all in a spreadsheet. You could keep track of like which active halves have flown which missions, which passive halves have flown which missions, and it was just like the boosters. It was fantastic. And then they stopped doing that, and they would just tell you how many times each fairing half had flown, which was like, okay, that's annoying and a silly reduction of information in my opinion, but at least we're still able to keep track of if they're flight proven or not, and what the most flights are and whatnot. And then they completely stopped doing that as well, and now they don't tell us any information aside from on the occasional non-Starlink mission in this on their stream. They'll say how many times each payload fairing half has flown. It makes no sense to me why they stopped giving us this information, and if anyone from SpaceX is watching, please, I beg you, give us payload fairing information. Alex and I want to do analysis on it.
Yeah, I would love to have a lot of that data for our spreadsheets and everything. That'd be nice.
Yeah, because
Speaking
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, all we know from about the fairings is that the most they have flown is 16 times, and the quickest turnaround was, 27 days or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but like high 20s, so it's impressive, but I wish we would know more.
Well, one thing that we know now is that the stage 2 LUX load is complete, so the rocket now, Falcon 9, is fully loaded with propellants. That thing that you see on the water tower, that is completely normal. Don't fret, it's not a leak or anything. That's completely expected. That's the way of knowing when it's full, actually. And instead of having a sensor, you just let it overflow, and that's what you see in there on the tower, on the water tower. So that's completely normal. One other thing related to the water, I guess, is that when the engines ignite, you will not see the rainbirds go off at engine ignition. They go off after liftoff. So once Falcon 9 lifts off, then you're going to see the rainbirds go off. It's not delayed or anything like it. That's essentially how it goes. They have another set of closer deluge, I guess, next to the engines. But there you can see Falcon 9 is in startup. Ground computers have handed over control of the countdown to the onboard computers.
Yeah, and also
we
at
go
this
for
point,
launch.
we go for launch, and the tanks will be pressurized for flight. So they increase the pressure in all of the tanks to make sure that they are structurally sound for the forces of all 9 of those Merlin engines, which, as Alex mentioned earlier, will begin igniting at T-minus 2.7 seconds or so before liftoff at T0. T-minus 10 seconds at this point. Pay attention to the base of the rocket. You may be able to see that signature green T-tab flash. It's like we didn't see the flash, but there is liftoff of Falcon 9 on the Starlink Group 6-56 mission. This is already SpaceX's 48th launch of 2024. And with that, we'll let you guys enjoy the audio. And there we have it. At this point, the booster will have passed through max Q, which was at T plus 1 minute and 12 seconds. The next event is a series of 3 events for both stages. First, all 9 of those Merlin 1D engines on the first stage will shut down. You can kind of see the individual exhaust plumes in this current shot. Shortly after that, we will see the stages separate, which there are 4 pushers between the 2 stages. There are 3 spaced 120 degrees apart on the outskirt of the inner stage, and then 1 central, and that's that rod you always see going into the MVAC. And then shortly after that, there will, of course, be ignition of the second stage of that MVAC engine. That will be the first of 2 burns tonight. During all of that, the first stage will, of course, begin its flip and deploy its grid fins for re-entry and landing aboard a Shortfall of Gravitas. The series of events should start in about 4 seconds. And there we
Where's
have
Nico?
a shutdown. And there is stage ignition of stage 2. And there's SpaceX's view is on the left, as I was saying. You can see that central pusher, and then the 3 radially as well. And now, on the right, there's that MVAC engine slowly glowing orange as it warms up. That is, of course, nominal on how it is chilled. And on the left, there you have deployment of those grid fins.
And shortly, we'll see the deployment of the grid of the fairing halves. There you can see those fairings, and off they go.
Completing yet another launch. Well, for the fairings. And there's that payload stack. 23 Starlinks on board as usual for these Cape missions. Those will be deployed, as Alex was mentioning, into a slightly higher orbit today. Alex, you said it was about 20 kilometers higher than normal?
Yeah, 20 to 30 kilometers higher than usual for these Group 6 missions. So it's going to be interesting what they do with the second stage for orbital insertion. It normally goes up to about 160 kilometers, and then it goes down to 152 at shutdown. That is a very normal thing to do with your second stage, to go a little bit high, and then it goes down a few kilometers to take advantage of that going down. It's actually more... if you do it too far down, obviously it's too inefficient. But if you do it a little bit only, then you can get some efficiencies, whole orbital mechanics and stuff that goes on there as well. So they tend to do that, and so it's gonna be interesting once that MVAC shuts down and they get into orbit. What's gonna be the speed and the altitude? If it looks the same as usual, then I'm gonna say that maybe the data that SpaceX sent to the tracker sites maybe was not correct, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that final number. Yeah,
Right.
It's usually around 27,055 kilometers per hour in the speed, and the altitude is usually around 152 at MVAC shutdown. So we'll see. We have great views today of the Bahamas.
I was just about to say that water around the Bahamas looks incredible.
Yeah.
And we also saw it briefly on the first stage camera. Wow, these are really cool views. As Elon likes to say, it looks fake, and that's how you know it's real. So yeah, at this point, as Alex and I have been alluding to, the booster is getting ready to start its entry burn. So as you can see at this point, it's primarily using it's entirely using RCS thrusters, those occasional white puffs coming out of that RCS pod. That's because this high up in the atmosphere, right, it's at 84 kilometers, there's not enough air for those grid fins to have control authority. So ahead of getting into the thicker parts of the atmosphere, they will ignite a single engine and then followed shortly later by 2 side engines for the entry burn, and that will help drastically reduce the stage 1's velocity, allowing it to not burn up on reentry. And there we have that first engine and those side 2. So now there's our 3 engines ignited for this entry burn, which is expected to last on the order of 24 seconds.
Yeah, you can see how the second stage view is getting further and further away from the Bahamas as it, and the Cape is getting almost over the horizon there. Being
And
lost.
the
But
aqua color looks so cool. I can't get over how cool that is.
And now the first stage, you can see there, it's now steering it's at a high angle of attack as well. If you compare that to the horizon on the right-hand side of that booster feed, it's getting down now. You can see how far away the stage 2 is now.
Yeah. And right, the next burn of the first stage will be the landing burn, which, as the name implies, will bring it to a soft landing on the drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas. This burn is expected to start at T plus 7 minutes and 55 seconds, with stage 1 landing occurring at T plus 8 minutes and 18 seconds. So pay
watch
attention.
For the, I was going to say, watch for the speed, because usually the telemetry goes a little bit ahead of the video. So you'll see first a sudden drop on the speed, and then you'll see the footage.
Yeah, and also pay attention to under the left grid fin.
There's the landing burn.
Yep, normally,
now you can see
there's
it.
the drone ship. And now you can also really get a good idea of how steep that angle of attack is.
The shadow.
Wow,
You can see the shadow of the booster on the water.
Wow, footage all the way down onto a successful landing. Oh, that was smooth on a Shortfall of Gravitas.
That was really smooth, yeah.
Yeah, this was SpaceX's, oh gosh, my spreadsheets haven't updated yet. What landing number was this?
I can tell you in just a second. It's the 231st since the last failure of a booster landing. And also, it was the 68th on a Shortfall of Gravitas.
Yeah, and 305th overall. And there we have our favorite view of an empty launch pad following a successful launch. And wow, we already have replays ready.
That's fast turnaround, faster than SpaceX.
While we're going through these, by the way, do keep half an eye out on that TE on the right-hand screen, because we do sometimes get to see that go vertical to already start picking up the reaction frame ahead of the next launch. SpaceX just doesn't stop. And here we have more replays on the left.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the first one that we saw was D. This is one from our bots. And this might be Max. Ryan put out like a list on the back channel of what shots he will be showing. He had it all ready to go.
Yeah,
wow.
That was fast. Let's see, will we get Max's shot through Max Q?
Max E with Max Q. And that, I think it's one of the bots again.
Yeah.
You can also see the angle of attack during launch as well. How much more inclined, I guess. Yeah, the slope of that ascent.
Yeah.
Ooh, we may even have a fast turnaround of pictures as well. That's Miko, I guess, from Gauge. Or close to Miko. Kind of looks like it.
Yeah, looks like Miko's probably like 10 seconds out would be my guess.
Yeah. So that's already very high up. There we go. That's Miko.
And let's see if we see stage 2 ignition. Yep.
That looks like it. Yeah, in the middle of the day, it's a lot fainter.
Yeah.
The sun is out. During the night, it will be much more noticeable. But yeah, now we have 2 boosters on drone ships, because in the meantime, we have B-1069 returning from the Starlink 657 mission. There you can see it's arriving on Just Read the Instructions. Just Read the Instructions will shortly go out after it drops off this booster for the next Starlink mission. 658 currently scheduled for May 12th.
Awesome. And don't forget that there's the 3rd star event of the day this afternoon. There's Starlink Group 8-2, which is currently 248 UTC on
That will
May
be
9th.
7:48 p.m. Pacific,
Yep.
11:48 Eastern. But there we have the fast turn-on from Max of that liftoff shot. It's always so cool to see a daylight launch from 39A.
39A is such a good looking pad. But with that, I think that...
I think Max is back.
Max, we do have you back.
Hey, boys, how do you hear me?
Loud and clear. How was launch?
You know, the cliche is often said around here between myself and others who are fortunate enough to come out here pretty often that it never gets old. But you know, I'm grateful that even though it is warmer now and the sun is beating down on us, the light is much better than it would have been at around 11 o'clock this morning when it was supposed to lift off initially. But this really never gets old, man. It just a daylight launch from 39A with light like this, you know, minus the heat haze, which is pretty abysmal and diabolical. Never gets old. And also with what the wind is doing, blowing roughly in our direction, it only amplified the sound so much. I kept looking over at D, and the sound was, it's always so much punchier from pad A, at least from this perspective, because I think we're roughly a mile or so closer than we are from like 40. And just even also, because it's launching on a southeastern trajectory from pad A, we are getting a much more side-on view than we normally would have from like 40. So we can pretty much see the entire length of Falcon 9 as it ascends all the way downrange, all the way to stage 7 Miko. Beautiful day, minus the heat. Just wonderful time, and I really hope that audio came through as well on the replays, and also on when it was live.
Yeah, when it was live, we had fantastic audio. It was really punchy, as you were saying.
Sorry, I got the time wrong before because I cannot do 7+3, I guess. It's 10:48 p.m. Eastern, 7:48 Pacific.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be a really pretty
Starlink.
one.
Yeah, that should be probably
Yeah.
jellyfish effect in the West Coast. So we will not be able to cover that, but you know, if you are in the zone, look out for that because you might be able to see that. I know people can even spot jellyfish effects even from as east as like New Mexico, Arizona, all of those locations, because these launch from the West Coast. Starlink 8.2 is going to go southeast, just like today's launch from the Cape was also southeast. From Vandenberg, it'll also go southeast, hugging the coast of California and Baja California and all that. So everyone around that will be able to see that, and very much all the way to the east, like New Mexico and all of that, you'll be able to see that. So look out for that.
Yeah, on the one Starlink mission from Vandy, maybe a month ago or so, maybe it was between 1 and 2 months ago. I can't recall exactly, but the one that had this
8-1.
absolutely 8-1 that had this absolutely wild jellyfish that was viewed as far east as Las Vegas. I have family in the Tucson, Arizona area, and I texted them like, "Hey, are you guys outside by chance? Like, have you guys seen the SpaceX launch out to the west?" And my aunt sent me a video of the most insane looking jellyfish over the mountains over in Arizona. It was so wild. And that sort of thing can happen if Falcon 9 launches at the right time. And that feature is more prominent on the West Coast, of course, because to get that same effect here with the light, the sun has to be rising. And with the way we are looking at pad A now, direction-wise, we are looking out to the east and the sun sets behind us. So it's a lot more difficult to get that effect more often than not. Whereas from Vandenberg, it's a lot easier to have that effect, or it's a lot less difficult, I guess you could say, in terms of timing. So stunning.
Yeah, and one of the things, because someone pointed out in chat that it is true that it is not prime jellyfish time, because it's 7:48 and sunset at Vandenberg is actually around 5 minutes after that. But on the rest, if you go to the east, if you go to LA or Arizona or New Mexico or whatever, you can get a much more pronounced jellyfish effect But speaking of replays, we're looking at replays of this launch. You can also see replays of today's other star event, which is the Ship 30 static fire test that we saw just a few hours ago. There you can see all of the different camera views that we have there at Starbase. I was there on that stream. We're looking at replays as well of those views on that stream. If you want to go watch the stream as well, you can go back as well to that. But that's I'm gonna leave the link to that Ship 30 old camera views, I guess, replay, so that you can watch that. One of the things that tends to happen as well when we have a lot of streams and activities and that sort of jazz is that, you know, notifications don't go out because we are very active, and YouTube is like, ooh, you're very active, right? And so it doesn't send these notifications. So just in case you're not aware, that's out. You can watch that. You know, all of the views and everything.
Yeah, and as a reminder, that is Ship 30, which is the Flight 5 ship. So this is not the one for the next Starship flight, but the one for the next.
Are you for real, Ryan? With a countdown? I mean, technically, it's unretracting. Because he was on the step for Stromac retract, and I'm like, maybe he's making a joke out of that because it's going up again, so it's unretracting. It's going back on the timeline. He's saying Rogue One. Yeah.
We have another tweet from a certain Jared Isaacman. Real quick before we show D's slow-mo footage. He said, "Welcome back, 1083." So this is, again, not confirmation that this is the Polaris Dawn booster, but I think I would have good odds on this being the 1080 or the Polaris Dawn booster. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Now it's
nudge,
gonna go
nudge.
off to refurbishment and then get to Polaris Dawn, hopefully in a few weeks from now.
Yeah.
Welcome back, 1083. Yeah, at the rate that they're refurbishing this, we're talking about a month or so. It is true that this is a crew launch, but again, it's a private crew launch, so they probably don't have the same stringent requirements that they have, for example, with NASA. And so this booster can probably be used in about a month for a crew mission. So, you know, expect Polaris Dawn maybe in about a month. Who knows?
Yeah, but now we are expecting amazingness since we have D's slow-mo footage. So here you can see is liftoff with the throwback, strong back, slowly throwing back. Gosh, this really never gets old, the slow-mo footage. And here, as Alex was saying, you can start seeing those rainbirds ramp up after it starts ascending.
Yeah, because those rainbirds, what they do is they protect the launch deck from that fury of those 9 Merlin engines, rather than being, you know, something that goes off and gets like it's deluge for protection rather than sound suppression or anything like it. That's done a little bit below the engines. And I'm hearing the outro music, so I'm guessing we're outroing already.
Yeah, well, I have one more person to thank. John with the $10 super chat saying, "Always a pleasure catching a stream, be it Starship, Static Fire, Starlink. Can't thank y'all enough." We can't thank you enough, John. Thank you for being on or tuning into both streams today and for your support. We really do appreciate it.
And honestly, how cool is it that we have people here in Florida covering Falcon 9 launch, and then earlier this morning we have people in Texas covering the static fire of Ship 30, and then we have another Starlink launch out of Vandenberg in just a few hours' time. Like this, it's so bizarre and it's so wild, man. Rewind 10 years. This kind of thing was the thought of fantasy. We are, and oh, good Lord, I'm lost for words, as you can probably tell. I'm absolutely speechless. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge the fact that this kind of coverage and this kind of yeah, this coverage is only made possible thanks to every single one of you watching, whether it be super chats, donations, or even just you hitting the like button. This is only made possible due to every single person watching this stream, and also the stream earlier, and also watching all of our videos. I know I'm doing a god awful job at speaking right now.
Is that our camera tracking the launch?
It is, yeah. I think that was a camera set up by D tracking or getting a video of either Gauge or our auto track. Yeah, dude, this is so crazy that this kind of thing is even possible. Wow, what a time to be alive, guys! And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is incredible.
Yeah, said it better than I can, but when we say we can't do it without you guys, like, that's not some trying to be nice or whatnot. It is, we are not owned by any massive corporation. We are here because of viewers.
Ooh, the slow-mo. I liked on this slow-mo from D that we showed before, you could see the QDs for the second stage and the intro stage and everything. You could see the stromback as it pulls out, those QDs being pulled out, those quick disconnects, those umbilicals. Also the flames, the exhaust wiggling as the rocket goes up. But yeah, I guess that's my cue for wrapping up, I guess, for myself. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, Alex, thank you very much as always for being on today's stream. On both streams, I guess. Then also, we had Mr. Max Evans. Max, thank you for being out there in the 90-degree sun to bring us these awesome views, awesome sound.
Hey, we are happy to do it as many times as needed, and honestly, I'm happy to come out whenever, and this is just incredible to be here and to do what we do. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in.
Indeed. And then we had D also out in the field getting us that awesome slow-mo, and Ryan behind the scenes. And I want to thank everyone one last time for tuning in today. We really do appreciate it. I've been your host, Trevor Sesnick. Thank you all very much. See you guys later.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RS-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Bring in SPD off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. What is it? Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.